I guess everyone has seen on the timeline, REKT world domination.
We just grew like a really, really strong die-hard community, kind of like a cult. We knew there was like some energy behind this as a brand. So the idea was like, we had this REKT logo, we had this idea of like REKT as a brand, but how do we now get it into as many places as possible?
Was this always part of the plan, or like did you see like if it picks up, it picks up?
I really believe tomorrow's brands are going to be crypto native. I really, really believe that. We're trying to hit 1 million drinks sold within 12 months, which hasn't been done since Red Bull in the 90s.
I want to know, it's like, what's next for REKT? What's the big vision? Some people trade charts, some people build brands, and my next guest does both. From his TradFi roots to co-founding REKT, Ovi, as known as OSF, has carved out a lane that blends culture, crypto, and community in a way nobody's done before. He's not just dropping drinks, but he's pioneering the brand coin movement and shaping how Web3 culture looks and feels. Hey OSF, welcome to the Bay Show. It's a pleasure having you.
Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Definitely, man. I was just, something that I was just sharing with you before this call. Like, it's been one of those stories that I guess everyone has seen on the timeline. REKT world domination, right? I guess your PFP, the kind of choice of words that you guys use goes unseen, on our timeline. But I guess, a lot of times people don't realize like the backstory. And when we spoke about it in our chatters in my group, in our group chat, they're like, yo, why is REKT pumping so much? Like, what the hell did they just do? And, I said, yo, guys, like what you see is a result of years of experience, right? But that being said, like, I understand that you were, big into TradFi, and then the NFT world, of course, and then obviously the REKT and the whole the IP play, brand play. Man, tell us about this entire journey. How did this whole transition happen?
Yeah, it's a good question. So yeah, you're right. I started my career in traditional finance. So I was a trader at Barclays Capital. I traded high yield and distressed credit and credit derivatives, and I did that for about 10 years. I got into crypto 2021, so actually quite late. Bitcoin I first bought in January 2021. Then I bought ETH, and then I bought NFTs, and just got straight down the rabbit hole, like many people on crypto Twitter these days. So I started out really mainly just by trading stuff, collecting NFTs, etc. Just generally doing like being a typical DJ, I guess. And
the good old days.
Yeah, the good old days. Yeah, exactly. I used to make a lot of digital art when I was younger, and back then there was no NFTs, no crypto or anything. So I just, tried my hand at making stuff again. And, back then I would make stuff on Photoshop with like my mouse to draw, because to get a graphics tablet was super expensive. So now obviously these days you can get an iPad and it's easy to draw things. And so, just tried my hand at creating stuff again, just kind of like on the side, really, not really to make money or for it to be a, career path or anything like that, but started having a lot of success with the art that I created, and then eventually I created REKT Guy, which was an NFT profile picture project, but it was a free mint. We didn't charge anything for it. We had no roadmap for it or anything like that. I literally had no intentions to do anything with it, which is why it was free. But obviously we caught some virality in 2022, and then we just, over the next two to 3 years of a bear market, we just grew like a really, really strong die-hard community, kind of like a cult following, I would say, that we had behind it. And that's when I realized there was a lot more potential behind REKT as something, something more than just like a profile picture NFT project. And that's when we went down the path of REKT Drinks and everything that REKT is today, basically. So kind of weird, because, I had it's not like I woke up one day and thought, I'm going to just make REKT this big thing. It slowly, developed over time, I think, which I think is the organicness of it is what I think makes it special, I would say.
Interesting. Yeah, because I think, a lot of people probably think of you as one of those branding experts to kind of see like, hey, these guys had a masterclass name, REKT, right? I guess if you think about it, and like you said, it became a cult during the bear market. I think that whole timing of things just aligned and played out so well, because I'm pretty sure everyone's bags were REKT by then. And of course, that community. I think that's one thing about the NFT meta I say, that's very different to meme coins. Like in NFTs, you actually cultivate a community, right? And especially like when you're down bad, I think that's when people actually get together. But interesting that you say that, none of this was planned. And of course, like, as you progress things, you kind of figure out what's next. But I guess, that being said though, like, how did the REKT brand, and why, how did you eventually venture into something that was drinks? Did you have a special advantage or a special interest that or a special connection in this particular niche that you felt like could have been the first go-to product?
I don't know. I think the only reason we did drinks really was because we thought, okay, REKT is kind of cool as a brand. It's kind of like there's a bit of an irony in it because, REKT is obviously, it sounds like a negative term. It's like, oh, I got wrecked, like I lost money, or maybe I got too drunk or something bad happened. But the word REKT sounds cool. Like I think it's a cool word. So we thought it was like, there's an opportunity to make this into like something cool that felt strong as a brand. And when we had done a couple of merch drops and we had done a few events, and the drops always sold out really fast and the events were always really full, like tons of people would turn up. So we knew there was like some energy behind this as a brand. So the idea was like, okay, we have this REKT logo, we have this idea of like REKT as a brand, but how do we now get it into as many places as possible, right? Like brands become powerful when people see them in the wild, yep, organically, and think, oh, what is that? That looks cool. And so we settled on drinks because, number one, the original NFT is like a guy drinking a drink. But number two, with drinks, they're cheap to manufacture. You can mass produce them. And in crypto, there's loads of events throughout the world, all throughout the year. And just having drinks at every event seemed like quite an easy way to infiltrate the brand sort of thing. It's like, hey, events, we'll send you guys a bunch of free drinks if you want them. And everyone says, yeah, sure. And then you have your, these drinks with like the big REKT logo on them at every single event, and that's like a very powerful, I think, marketing mechanism. So, there are other products you can make, like you can make clothes, you can make, I don't know, like sports stuff, whatever it is. But like with that sort of stuff, I think there's the target addressable market is not that big. With clothing, people have different tastes. Some people will wear hats, some people won't, etc. Whereas with drinks, especially the drink that we have, which is literally just a flavored sparkling water, that captures and casts quite a wide net. And most people, even if they don't drink that, would be curious to at least try it once.
Yep.
And that's why I think as a product it was strong. So like, it's tricky because people say, well, the drinks industry is one of the most saturated industry and most competitive.
Yep.
There's no way you can break into that. And that's absolutely true. But I wasn't viewing it as like, how can we break into the drink industry? I was like, how can we have a product that will proliferate this brand within crypto? And if we can be successful there, we can then start to become much bigger than that. And that's the way we approached it, I think.
Yep. No, that makes a lot of sense, especially from the virality sense of things. But so OSF, tell us a little bit more about like what is so I do understand REKT isn't just REKT drinks. Like REKT has REKT brands, and I think you guys encompass. I think REKT drinks is one part of the bigger umbrella that not many people actually maybe realize, right? So walk us through like what is this REKT brands, and perhaps what's like the vision with that entire brand, what you guys encompass to do.
Yeah, so we call the company REKT Brands Inc. rather than REKT Drinks because we want to leave the door open to do other things. We're starting with drinks. We've actually been working on product development for more products that aren't just flavored sparkling water and for more products that aren't just drinks. So there's a lot more stuff coming, but if you look at some of these modern day companies like, I'm going to use the comparison of like Red Bull or Monster Energy, etc. They're not really just energy drink companies, right? There's this like culture that's associated with them. There's this brand that's associated with them. Obviously, Red Bull has sports teams, and it's really become this whole big piece of culture, I think, in the last few decades. And that, I think, is, we want to call it REKT Brands because we want to leave the door open for it to become something much bigger and just beyond drinks. And, if you think about REKT as it exists right now, sure, we have drinks, but we have the REKT coin, which is like a brand token. We have the REKT Guy NFTs, which is the original stuff that came with it. We have all these different events that we do throughout the year. that we've been doing for the last 3 or 4 years. So there are more things. We have REKT Radio, which is like a weekly podcast. So there are all these different components that sort of fit into like the REKT brand umbrella. And I think you've had iterations of stuff like real world culture, which is kind of like what Red Bull's done.
Yep.
And then you had this idea of internet culture, which is maybe what some of the esports teams have done really well, and stuff like FaZe, for example. And then you have, I think, crypto culture, which is something that some people have done well, but there aren't really like that many strong brands within the crypto space that I think have really like proliferated outside into the real world, other than, I guess, Pudgy Penguins. And I think obviously the vibe of Pudgy Penguins is very different to like the vibe of REKT. I think I wouldn't say it's necessarily a different market, but it's definitely a different vibe. And I just think there's an opportunity for us to be like something there, be like the next generation of brands, where you've gone from like brick and mortar brands to internet brands to social media brands, and now this new world of like Web3 / crypto brands.
Yeah, no, I believe, like, I think, for sure, but I think Pudgy really carved a niche of, I'd say branding within Web3. But when it comes to like brand coins, or let's say brand movements, I think a lot of people can now relate to REKT, for instance, right? I guess especially, I think it was about a couple of months ago. Was it maybe three months ago that you actually wrote that very long article about the whole journey and like why brand coin? But I think that definitely resonates with the culture in Web3, because one thing I guess we all can agree is like the community and just the amount of people in crypto generally that would kind of relate to a brand would be massive, right? But what do you think was like the actual moment where you kind of like felt the branding side of things was the actual key success, that could have really popped things off? Because I mean, from a recognition perspective, I think you guys were definitely doing a lot of events. A lot of people started knowing you. But in terms of price action, which is one thing that a lot of people in crypto usually judge the success of the product, which is perhaps not the best metrics, but it is what it is. What do you guys think was like the key success, or what drove that actually?
Yeah, look, I do think marketing what we were as a brand coin was a big pivot. Not necessarily pivot, but a big way for people to understand what we were doing. Because look, before, people would say REKT is a meme coin. Yeah. And in my opinion, the definition of a meme coin is not just a meme. It's a coin that has no utility or no intrinsic value, no cash flows, and it can just trade based on sentiment. That's what really like a meme coin is. So, for example, Pepe is a meme coin because it represents the meme Pepe, but is Trump a meme coin? Like, there are different coins out there which are not necessarily traditional memes. So I felt like people were maybe a bit confused, because they're like, oh, well, REKT, there's the REKT guy, it's kind of like a meme, but it's not really, I'd see comments like, REKT isn't a strong enough meme that will get the normies in and all that kind of stuff. And I was like, I agree, just on the meme alone, it's not powerful enough, but that's not really what REKT is. We have this whole REKT brand stuff, and we have the drinks and everything, and that's what we're trying to push. So when I was having a conversation with someone, they were like, what really is REKT? I was like, REKT is a brand. So then I was like, okay, well, why don't we just call it a brand coin? It's a category that, probably already existed. Like Pengu is probably, in that category, I would say. It's a handful of other things, but I think no one had ever really specifically called it brand coin.
Yep.
And so I was like, this concept, I think, actually can be quite powerful. And we're not doing anything different, but we're just rehashing what it actually means to own this coin. So that, I think, was a big pivot. And then when we started to explain, what actually is a brand coin, and it's like this idea of okay, if you want to support an up and coming brand, how do you do it? Usually buy their products, share the link with all your friends and stuff. But if that brand kills it in the next 5 years, what do you have to show for it? Nothing. You have no, other than bragging rights, you have nothing to really show that you were rewarded for it. But with REKT drinks, you buy the drinks, you hopefully like it, you earn the REKT coin, and if we do really well over the next, few months or years, whatever it is, and the coin goes up, you've benefited from it. So it's a way of rewarding loyal supporters. And I think those two things combined together, this idea of okay, this is a brand coin, it trades based on the sentiment of the brand, and it rewards, supporters of the brand, I think people then finally understood it. It's like, okay, I actually get this. And not only did crypto people understand it, it's very easy to explain to a normal person. Yep. Exactly. And I think that was the key light bulb moment for everyone, I would say.
Yeah, well, I guess one of the few questions that a lot of people had was like, what actually was the thought process behind the genius marketing? And I think you just explained it very well just now.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's not like we had it planned. It just, it's what it is. Like, that's exactly what it is, and that's how we spoke about it.
I will say this too as well. Like, I mean, one of the reasons why, by the way, I bought the REKT guy NFTs back in the days.
Nice.
Obviously sold it for a scalp for some, but I guess what really got to me, and by the way, I think one of the reasons I did that was because of Wizards of Soho. I think he's a very strong advocate of you as a person, right? Of you and Mando as a person. But I think a lot of people forget to see the fact of you guys showing up every day, right? Like you guys actually being thought leaders within the niche, talking about macro, talking about different, I think crypto in general, talking about your experience, right? So I guess that's that in itself, combined with this, let's say the genius marketing side of things, is kind of what really led to what a lot of people see as an overnight success based on the, the up only charts we saw like a couple of weeks ago, right? And I guess this is my next question to you that I want to ask out there is like, I'm pretty sure post this price action that we saw, the recognition that you guys getting right now, I'm sure a lot of people may have reached out to you like, hey, I'm building this, how do I do it? How do I, I've got the IP rights of this, or I want to build something. What would you say to these guys who have maybe, just acquired IPs or trying to build an IP within the intersection of Web3 and brands, right? Like, what is it? What's the secret sauce of success?
You see, I get asked this question a lot, and as you say, I've had a lot of people reach out, and I think there's a couple of sides to this coin. I think the first is, people want to get rewarded and earn crypto and all that kind of stuff, and that makes sense. But we're not the first consume to earn project, right? There's been tons of consume to earn projects out there, and most of them have failed. And the reason why I think this is different is because REKT didn't start off with a token. REKT started off organically with an NFT project and just memes and no roadmap or anything like that, and it built a community over the course of about 4 years through a bear market, which I think is very important, because that's when you find out real diehard people who want to stay, not just for any monetary reason. They don't want to stay because they like being there, and that I think is a key thing for us. And I think after our community had already been built, already existed, there was something there, and the only reason why we did the token in the first place was because we thought there was something there. Then it all fell into place and made sense. So if I just woke up tomorrow and I was like, cool, I'm just going to go out there and buy like this IP, and now we're going to do a token, and I have no existing community, it's very tough, because you have to, the initial reaction of anyone in the space is like, well, cool, it's just a cash grab. They're going to just, the team are just going to like pump
Absolutely.
this token, dump on me, and then move on. Like, no one can really trust you. You haven't built any trust. So I would say my advice is, if you're genuinely trying to build something, you have to put in the time to create a community and build trust within that community. And that time, the longer that time is, the stronger your trust is, and the more, the higher your token will be. And that's up to you. And that becomes a real question of character, because if someone just wants to, make money quickly, they're not going to spend that time to build a community, because they want, they'll be like, oh, it's a bull market, I want to make the money now before the bear market, etc. Like, for us, we've been through like 2 whole cycles of stuff, and we only did it because we thought there was something to it. So if you have a real genuine intention, I think you have to really understand that it takes a lot of time to build trust. I'm talking years, and if you're not willing to put in that time, then you either are going to get lucky, or you have to honestly ask yourself a question: are you doing it for the right reason? I think.
Absolutely. I think that was very well said, because I guess what you're saying here is like you literally cracked the community side of things at the bear market, which is like, nothing could have gone worse. You're already at rock bottom, and then you already had some sort of distribution amongst those community, and then you coupled it with the right product that could actually scale and go beyond the community itself.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's exactly right. That's very well put. Yeah.
Well, I guess when you say build trust, right, and I would also perhaps say and notice this myself, because I'm in the marketing industry, work with a lot with KOLs. Somehow a lot of KOLs were sidelined on this whole price action as well, and I noticed quite throughout the journey that I've seen you guys and your tweets, like, and you mentioned this quite loud and clear. You're being quite vocal about it. You guys didn't do any KOL like engagements and stuff, right? I guess, what was really the rationale, and perhaps what brought around that confidence? And I'm probably guessing it's that trust factor that you're talking about, but what was this always part of the plan, or like did you see like, hey, if it picks up, it picks up, and of course, you must have got a lot of people approaching you at a lot of different parts of that whole journey as well.
It's always been part of the plan. Like, let me ask you a question. Who do you trust more? The guy who's been paid to say something, or the guy that's saying it just because he's saying it, right? Like, I think there's a big difference in that.
Yep.
And like, the KOLs in the space, like, I'm sorry, but like, 90% of people know who all the KOLs are. Like, it's very obvious who they are. It's very obvious when someone's been paid to tweet. It's very obvious when a coin is doing a campaign with KOLs and they're all getting paid to tweet. It's obviously very obvious when people are doing something like InfoFi and Kaito and that kind of stuff, and they're all saying something because they're incentivized. Like, it's not genuine. I'm sorry, but it's not genuine. Like, maybe you might see it on your timeline and think, oh, there's people talking about it, I might buy it, but it's not genuine. You can't build anything off that. Like, I mean, it's the same for all ads. When I see like influencer ads on Instagram or whatever, and someone's like, oh, hey, like, buy this creatine because it's really good and this one's better than the other ones, use my ref link. It's like, I'm sorry, but it's just like, it's not genuine. Like, it's almost like I find it a bit insincere, actually. Like, if you met someone in real life and they were like, oh, by the way, like, this product's really good, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and like, okay, cool. And then they told you, yeah, I got paid to say it and use my ref link and I'll get paid some money for you using it. You're not going to be like, oh, cool, okay, I'll do it. You're going to be like, oh, okay, I'm not sure now, right? So I think that's one of the whole vibes about everything that we're doing. Like, we don't want that. We want it to be like genuinely organic. We don't want that sort of like paid KOL feeling. Now, like, at some point in time, we're going to have to do some form of paid marketing, and we haven't really done it yet because I'm not sure how to do it, and I don't want to ruin that vibe. But at some point, we'll have to do it. But I just think it takes longer to build if you're not doing paid marketing. It takes longer for that feeling to get across. But if you can be successful at it, then it becomes really powerful. And I think one of the things that we did really well is we gifted equity in REKT Brands Inc. in the company to all our original community NFT holders. So instead of paying KOLs to tweet about it, we've gifted our community equity in the company, and they're the ones tweeting about it. So it's not like it's not like 3 guys with 100,000 followers. It's like 1,000 guys with 100 followers. And I think, in my opinion, that's much, much more powerful. And we've rewarded people who've been there from the beginning, rather than rewarding people just because we think they have a big audience.
What was the response of all your TradFi friends?
That's a good question. Like, a lot of my TradFi friends are involved because, I was like, hey, I'm going to do this REKT thing. We raised some capital last year. So a lot of them, were seed invested and stuff.
Right. Interesting.
And yeah, so a lot of them are involved. It's split down the middle, like half of them are involved. The other half are very skeptical and, maybe even envious, because at the end of the day, I feel like when you're in the corporate world, no one really truly maybe some people do actually love it. I've met people who do love it, but most people are like, I don't want to do this forever. And when someone finds a way out, people are skeptical that like, oh, there's no way someone could find a way out and still make as much money or get paid more money and live a better life. I think people are very skeptical of it. So I did get that sort of vibe from it, but most of my actual friends they're all involved, and I think they're enjoying it.
Interesting. I mean, they'd probably be like, "Yo, OSF, how come we didn't get the signal to buy in?" But I guess,
Yeah.
I guess you kind of said it quite well. Like they're probably already investors at some stage in the early days. So, I think that's a big win for them as well. And I think hopefully that also kind of, we talk about onboarding normies into crypto, right? I guess this is somewhere the best way to kind of do that, because just the way Pudgies did it with their plushies, you guys are doing with their drinks, and of course there's going to be many different products along the way, hopefully, that we see. And I guess at least there's something that they can relate to, and of course everybody loves making money, unless they're bought it at the top and somehow they're like, oh hey, this is not what I paid for, but hey, at least you're getting a good drink in your hand, man, even if the price is falling down.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you can drink the drink. It's a real product.
Well, I guess just kind of moving on, but one of the interesting questions that I want to know is like, what's next for REKT, right? Like, what's the big vision? Is it like, hey, we want to go after the Red Bull and want to be sponsoring one of these races, or what's that vision for you, OSF?
Yeah, as I said earlier, I really believe tomorrow's brands are going to be crypto native. I really, really believe that. And I think crypto allows you to reward your supporters in a way that's never been possible before. Loyalty points, like, who cares about loyalty points when you can't trade them for anything? There's unlimited supply of them. It's just, they're pointless, right? Whereas this is much more powerful. And I think with the way regulation is going across the world, but mainly in the USA, every company is going to be trying to figure out, like, how do I use crypto in what I'm doing? It's going to be a big part of business and economy in the USA. So I really want REKT to be at the forefront of that. I want it to be an example where people are like, oh shit, like, this is what REKT did, and that's how it's done. Like, that's how we should be building our brand or our company, or that's how we should be rewarding our supporters. And that starts with what we're doing, but it grows with many more other things. And I think we've done a great job in the last few weeks and months of making an impression in the crypto world, but our footprint in the real world is still very small. And although we're starting to make some noise now, there's much more we can do. And I think in terms of what's next and how that growth looks like, is eventually we're looking to get like a big distribution deal for stocking drinks, not just selling them online from our website, but having them across thousands of stores globally. Like, we've had people come to us with this distribution deals, but we're holding out because we still have a lot more growth, I think, that we can have. And I think there's something pretty big that we can and will be able to do, hopefully in the near future. But something like that converts like REKT from just being a crypto thing to just being a much bigger and more global thing outside of crypto. And that's when I think, when our Instagram account suddenly gets tens of thousands of followers, or TikTok gets tens of thousands of followers, not because we've been botting it and getting fake followers, but because we're getting actual real organic followers. And that's by design for us, because that's how I can measure our footprint in the outside, in the normie world. That's when we'll know we're starting to grow things and expand. And product range, we just have sparkling water right now. I think we can have a much bigger and wider product range, as we touched on earlier as well. And as all these things expand and grow, as our revenues grow as well, I think having $100 million annual revenue rate is not off the cards for us. And
Yep.
There's massive growth in the functional beverage space right now. I think the possibilities are endless, but I think there's a very clear track and path that we can have, like any traditional drinks company would have right now, had they had that quick success that we've had, except we now have crypto as our engine to basically turbocharge it.
When's REKT Asia domination happening?
I know, man. It's definitely on the cards. We need to. Right now, we manufacture drinks in the US. We manufacture drinks in the UK, and supply to Europe. We will we'll ship drinks to Asia, but obviously it's super expensive. But yeah, the next step is definitely getting that REKT Asia stuff started up.
Huge market, man. Huge market.
I know.
A lot to be penetrated here, especially when you say sparkling water. So.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, if you ever need help on that side, happy to kind of see how I can help on the Asian side, especially Thailand, Japan, Korea, and stuff for sure.
Yeah, absolutely, for sure.
Well, maybe we'll start off by sponsoring the base show. Have some rec drinks right here on every show.
Yeah, exactly, exactly.
No, cool, man. I mean that's definitely. Well, what are some of your numbers, OSF? Like something that, of course, we have seen what 500K that have been sold out like in 2 different batches. What is like some of these offline numbers? I know you did some massive, I think what 7-Eleven. You guys sold out within like few hours as well or something.
Yeah, so the total drinks we've sold to date right now is 760,000, and that's been across 5 different like one-off drops. We're trying to hit 1 million drinks sold within 12 months, which hasn't been done since Red Bull in the 90s. So if we can do that, I think there's a good, we can make a good bit of noise around that. And then we did a 7-Eleven store launch in LA across 3 different stores, and we supplied 2,500 drinks across 3 stores, and they all sold out within a few hours. It was kind of crazy because like these guys at the 7-Elevens,
Jesus,
like they were like, what the hell's going on? Why are all these people turning up and literally buying like crates of this drink basically? So
but I'm curious though. Where do you think these guys came from? Like, do you think there were people that saw you guys? I mean, they all can be crypto native, right? Unless like you posted in your Discord and you're like, yo guys, everyone in LA, get your family, friends, and girlfriends and boyfriends to come into that 7-Eleven. Like, what was that? How did that the whole drive happen?
Yeah, no, we were very heavy on marketing, and to be honest with you, we got a lot of our community to turn up. We just said to everyone like, this is really important. We're doing a big physical store launch. We're doing it in LA, and everyone turn up, and it was quite cool because you'd get a big queue and a crowd outside of a 7-Eleven, and then all these normies are walking in thinking like, what the hell is this drink? Like, what's going on here? How do I get involved and that kind of stuff? And they normal people ended up buying the drink, which was quite cool to see, I think.
The FOMO effect played in.
Yeah, exactly.
Tell us one of like the I'd say the funniest or the weirdest sale that you have seen in front of your eyes.
The weirdest sale. The funniest one was, there was this kid, probably like 18 or something, and he was like, so if I buy this, I get $100 back. I was like, yeah. So he went, bought his drinks, and then he came to me and he was like, so how do I get the money? And I said, so we did this on Abstract Chain, right? So you had to, it was quite good. Like, we use a Privy wallet, you just tap it. In 3 taps, you would basically get the REKT in your wallet.
Yep.
And he was like, how do I get it into real money? I was like, I can explain it to you, but it's very complicated. And so I was like, well, okay, you have to get a Coinbase account. You have to send fiat money to it. You have to buy some ETH. Then you have to bridge that ETH to Abstract. Then you have to send it to your Abstract wallet. Then you have to trade, sell it for USDC, bridge it back to ETH, then send it back to your Coinbase wallet, and then you can sell it. And I was just like, he was like, man, that's so complicated. And I said, you know what? Just hold the token, don't sell it, hold it. And if you think this is cool, the price will, may potentially go up, and maybe you have an option on something. And I don't know if he sold it or not, but if he held on to it, I think the coin is up like 5x from there or something like that.
Oh, so, man, I wish this video somehow reaches him, man.
Yeah, exactly.
I thought he would have been like, bro, here's your drink, and you keep my $100. I'm not taking it back anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
OSF, what do you, so, I mean, now that you're gone down this route so deep, and of course now, it's obviously going to be way beyond crypto, right? I think the token side of thing will play in itself. I think that flywheel of just the attention to token price, and I think you've been super clear on the fact that, it's all written out there. There's no promises, there's no roadmap, there's, you don't own the equity of a company by holding REKT tokens. Like 5 years from now, I forget 5. 5's too long. 2 years from now, where do you picture yourself grinding? You're still in the trenches of, crypto Twitter, or like you're shifting more out there, like hanging out with the bigger brand boys to kind of, push REKT and REKT drinks out there?
Yeah, definitely. I don't want to just be, within crypto Twitter. And I think we're making strides right now to break out of it. And in 2 years, I want REKT to be, well known up there with a lot of these big brands out there. I mean, yes, you have stuff like Coca-Cola, Pepsi, Dr. Pepper, etc. But you've had a lot of emerging brands in the last 5 to 10 years, especially in the functional nutrition space, which are now basically household names, and they've done it in a very short space of time. And I think we can do the same thing. So that's that's where I want to be. I want it to be such that if you ask someone on the street, have you heard of REKT? I want like 90% of people to say, yes, I have. I've seen it somewhere. I've heard of it. That's where I want to be in 2 years.
Fantastic. No, that makes a lot of sense. I guess from your current, I'd say, daily life right now, like curious because you have that whole macro side of things. Like you and Mando, you guys come out there, talk about this whole crypto in general macro perspective. Like what's that, what would you say is that OSF edge in you, right? Like what's the one thing that you apart from REKT drinks, like what's something that you want to be remembered for, basically?
Yeah, I think I would love to be remembered for being a pioneer in something. Like, I think this whole brand coin stuff is interesting. I think the stuff that talked about in terms of parallels to traditional finance and crypto finance is interesting. And I think we've created a new way for B2C interactions. So I would love, when I'm dead, which will be in a very long time, I would like for people to be like, oh yeah, like that guy not created something, but that guy had a cool idea and kind of saw some parallels and pioneered like a new way to think about finance or a new way to think about business or a new way to think about brands. And I do think the Web3 world is a new way to think about a lot of these things, because at the end of the day, we're sitting here with coins that have zero intrinsic value trading at billions of dollars in market cap, right? And it's been happening now, not just for a few months or a year or two. It's been happening now for multiple years. So there is clearly something there, and there's clearly something that the traditional world has to change in terms of their way of thinking. And I would like to be known as one of the people who pushed that movement, I think.
Ovi Farouk, guys, remember that name. Yeah, there's OSF is just a pseudo name that he wants you to remember in Web3. But when you go to when you go to the next F1, it's not Singapore this year maybe, but next year, you might be up there, man, if you hear the name Ovi Farouk. Hey, enough of REKT, man. I want to prick your brains. Tell us what are your top picks for this cycle? Like, tell us a little bit more about this macro. Where are we at? When does the market top, in your opinion? How are you playing this?
I don't really believe in the 4-year cycle anymore, and I'm of the belief we will have an extended rally throughout multiple years. The game in crypto has changed. Just in the last 18 months alone, we've gone from crypto trying to be killed by the SEC to Gary Gensler being out, the SEC now being pro-crypto, the president of the US being pro-crypto, the US no longer selling its Bitcoin, not only no longer selling its Bitcoin, announcing a strategic Bitcoin reserve and potentially going to be buying Bitcoin at some stage, Bitcoin ETFs, Ethereum ETFs, BlackRock, the biggest asset manager in the world, managing trillions of dollars of assets, pushing Bitcoin. You've now had all these digital asset treasuries and people just aping into them because they want to get some crypto exposure. And not only have you had that in Bitcoin, but you've had that in Ethereum. And so like the game has completely changed, where unless you have like a broader macro sell-off, I don't think crypto is going to just like puke for no reason. And yes, there are always some risks in the system. There's always some leverage risk in the system, right? Obviously, MicroStrategy is one of those risks.
Yep.
Like maybe Athena is one of those risks. Like there's probably tons of leverage out there, from people being greedy. And the way that market cycles work is people become max greedy and take too much risk, and then everything, unwinds, and then, you have a bit of a bear market, and that could potentially happen. But I think just the game in crypto has changed, and I think if it drops meaningfully, you will have much more capital coming into it. 401ks now can accept crypto, right? Yep. And most people, in our world, we forget this because we're just with crypto people every day. But the vast majority of individuals, institutions, and companies and treasuries own zero crypto. Like the vast majority own zero crypto. And even if all of these people had a 1% allocation to crypto, it would create an insane amount of demand. So these things are changing, and I don't think we'll have a 4-year cycle, especially not in Bitcoin, possibly other majors. Altcoins, you know, it's going to be like penny stocks, right? They're going to move up and down and be volatile, and they're going to be their own thing, I think. But for Bitcoin especially, it's going to keep going. And from a macro standpoint, everyone is just so... People have too much PTSD, man. Too much PTSD. They're so anchored to what happened in 2022, so anchored to what happened in COVID. Look, COVID was a crazy black swan event, which probably won't happen again for decades, right? Like a big virus thing like that wipes out, you know, economies. That happens like not only every decade, it's like every century. You know what I mean?
Yep.
It's very rare something like that happens. And in 2022, the US had like 9% inflation and basically 0% interest rates. Now we have 2.7% inflation and 4.25% interest rates. I cannot explain how monumentally different those two scenarios are and how much of a better situation we're in now compared to then. Then the Fed had no levers to pull, and people were like, shit, what are they going to do now? What can they possibly do? Whereas now, they have so much like cushion to do something. You know, if data starts to get really bad, they can just slash interest rates by 25 bits, 50 bits, 75 bits, 1%. Like they have so much room to do things, and they didn't before. And not only that, but with this AI boom, we're still sitting here with like stocks at all-time highs. Like generally, the US economy is pretty strong. This big AI boom, like in my view, things are going pretty well. M2 is still growing, like money supply is still growing. Things are going pretty well, and I think things will continue to be strong. If anything, the next thing to happen is rates being cut, and that is usually only ever good for the market when that happens, especially if it's done at the right time. And I do think now is the right time. We probably will see rate cuts in September. We may even see a 50 pip cut, and that will be good for markets. So in my opinion, I couldn't really be more bullish. And we will have ups and downs. We're in a bit of a down period right now, but you have to just take a step back and just look at the situation that we're in now compared to where we were a year or two ago. And just the fact that the world is underexposed on crypto and crypto adoption is changing, I think is enough. And we've never had the situation before, by the way. Like, it's never been this case. It's always been the case where people have been skeptical on crypto. Now it's like the floodgates are open. So, yeah, I'm completely bullish. And
what's your top 3 holding though? Like, what are you?
I'm really bullish on Ethereum. Like, I think ETH. Remember that moment you first discovered what ETH was and understood it compared to Bitcoin? The normal TradFi world is going through that right now. So I'm really bullish on that. I'm really bullish on Hyperliquid. I think it's a very consensus trade, but I think Hyperliquid will end up getting bought by Coinbase or something like that.
Right.
It's a very, very good business. I obviously would mention REKT in that, but we've spoken about that a lot.
That goes without us saying.
Goes without saying, yeah. I don't know what else actually. It's tough to pick things in alts because narratives change and teams come and go, founders come and go. You want to bet on people who are going to stick around and work hard through thick and thin. And I think Luca is one of those people, right? So I think Pengu, I throw Pengu in there as well as one of those bets too.
Yep. Oh, well, feels good to hear all my bags.
Yeah, don't worry, stay calm.
Hey man, OSF, it's been a pleasure. I know you've got to go soon as well, but this was really interesting, and I hope we could definitely release snippets of these shorts of these video just to this whole record to make sure people kind of have a deeper understanding behind the whole rationale and like this whole genius marketing and like how REKT came around and all how we know what REKT world domination means. But until then, man, thanks a lot for coming on the show. Obviously I'm pretty sure people know where to find you. I'll put a handle right down below here as well. But until then, thanks a lot, man. Cheers. And thank you guys for watching the Bay Show. Until the next episode.